and said, I'm sorry, but the doctor's not here. He's out on his rounds. Somebody say yes here. Well, the daughter put that phone down and went back into the living room, and the little children, they were sitting there crying. They were all sitting there crying. And by that time, Grandmama had got out of the car. She made her way across that dirt road, and she walked up to it and just opened up the screen door, and she peeped in and she said, how's my son doing? And they told her, said, Mama, we tried to call the doctor, but he was out on his rounds. She said, child, let me come in. She walked in and she looked at that white lady. She said, ma'am, do you have a closet? She said, ma'am, do you have a closet? The white lady looked at her and said, if you want to use the phone, you can use the phone. She said, no, ma'am, I don't want to use the phone, but I want to call my doctor, and I need to go to the closet. Wait a minute. She made her way to that closet, and there was just enough room for her to get in there. She walked in that closet. The children were walking behind her. She walked in that closet and she closed the door, and before she talked to the Lord, she said this. Come on. Come on in the room. Take my dog and it right side on my street. They give me all my medicine in my room. Tell my teacher I can come on in my room. Tell my teacher I come on in my room. Jesus is my God, and it right side on my street. They give me all my medicine in my room. After that, come on in the room. Tell my past I say, come on in the room. Oh, Jesus is my God, and it right side on my street. It gives me all my medicine in my room. I want to see. Listen, I want to see the hands of you that know him to be a doctor in a sick room. If you know he's a doctor, let me hear you say yes. Well, Grandmama came out that closet and she made her way back to the living room. And everybody was just singing and praising the Lord. The children had gotten happy. The white lady had got happy. And while they were praising the Lord,
connecting the community through gospel.
The new 107.9 FM, W300EB,
Macon, and WDDO 980 AM,
Perry,
Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
It is now time for the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwenette Westbrooks and Mr. Dumas.
Good evening and welcome once again to the NAACP Truth Show. I'm Willie Dumas, your host, and joining me today is President Gwenette Westbrooks, and we certainly welcome you to our show today. We're very excited about the expansion of our audience in the form of the FM 107.9 that we're now part of as well, and so we're very excited about that and looking forward to you calling in and discussing with us our topic for today. Of course, I want to say, I know it's kind of belated, but happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Hope you had a wonderful Father's Day this past weekend. I know I did, and had a great time, and men was celebrated a little bit. And we're also going to talk about some other events that happened over the weekend. President Westbrooks, you want to chime in on us?
Yes. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. George Muhammad for continuously making sure that we celebrate Juneteenth and making sure that people are educated on what the Juneteenth actually, what it stands for, and the reason why it's so important that we continue to celebrate this day. As we know, our president actually signed a bill last week that makes Juneteenth a actually national holiday, which will that actually went into effect 2021. So that was very important, and we kind of, the Juneteenth kind of actually originated out of Galveston, Texas, in 1866, and it's been being celebrated annually on the 19th throughout the United States as official. Actually it's been celebrated throughout the United States, but actually this year was actually made a federal holiday. So we are glad about that. So, hopefully people will be able to celebrate it, even, in different counties that have not, actually different states that have not celebrated it. So we just want to again emphasize on how important it is not only to celebrate, but we just want to make sure that people are educated as to why this day is so important. And
it's very monumental, and really it was I won't say surprising, but a lot of people probably didn't expect to see this go into effect as early as it has, and the push behind it. And so it's a very phenomenal event that has taken place. And I know there were a series of things we were celebrating here in the local area, and the NAACP was also a part of that this weekend. I know if you want to share with our audience what we were involved with this weekend. Yes,
and so the Juneteenth basically surrounds around slavery, the Emancipation Proclamation, and it actually celebrates the freedom of slavery. But a lot of people don't know that during the Emancipation Proclamation, all the slaves were not actually free. They were free, but they were not freed at the same time when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So the people in the North were free, but the people in the South were still in slavery. And so this holiday is just a reminder of the inequalities that took place, and also the fact to reflect on how far we've come, and actually also to reflect on the fact that that even though we've come a long ways, we're still dealing with some of the same inequalities in the 21st century. So these are all of importance of education that we need to make sure that we continue as we continue to celebrate. But we were there and took part in the Juneteenth celebration, and we will be posting some pictures in some of the events and things that went on. They did have in the auditorium, they did have some things that were going on there as far as the play. Some plays and actually educational events that went on in the auditorium. I actually did speak to make sure that the community was aware of what our partake was as far as while we were there. And what we were doing, we were actually making copies of people. I was kind of surprised that we didn't get as many people photos made, but I guess people were just focusing on the holiday. But I wanted to make sure that people were aware that we were there and what our purpose for being there, because even though we are celebrating Juneteenth, we got to remember this voter suppression, this bill that was passed as a form of voter suppression. And this kind of takes you back to why Juneteenth is so important. So we won't go farther back than
Exactly.
we are today. So that was our purpose for being there, to make sure people were educated on the new law and to make sure that people were aware that we were available. We were making copies to make sure that people had the necessary materials they needed. So when they get ready to, because 2022 is just around the corner.
Absolutely.
And you saw where, so many voters are getting ready to be purged out of the system that have not voted. I think in the last 5 years, but people, if you don't vote in so many elections, then, they will purge you from the system.
Also, with the social media, there was a lot of talk about, since we now have Juneteenth as a holiday, should African Americans celebrate July 4th? And, it's been a lot of talk about that. And, the thing of it is, I'm pretty sure that, we're not trying to take away from any type of celebration. It's just a good thing that they finally acknowledged the fact that Juneteenth is relevant, particularly with African Americans, in that a lot of us didn't get our freedom at the same time. And so I know Mr. George Muhammad, one of the local leaders here in the Macon area, has been pushing Juneteenth for a number of years. And it's finally, I'm sure he's very excited about the fact that from a national standpoint, they're getting the acknowledgement that they deserve from that.
Yeah. And so, like I say, we just got to keep people educated and make sure that people are aware that this emancipation was part of the freedom of slaves. And I was doing some research earlier, and it was talking about Juneteenth actually celebrates the end of slavery, and what it did was, although, like I mentioned earlier, although the Emancipation Proclamation had been issued actually 2.5 years earlier, the Juneteenth did not get immediate attention for freedoms for everyone. Enslaved people of Native American and territories had to wait another year before, despite the the legalities of it in the slavery, like we mentioned earlier, everyone was not actually freed at the same time. And people, when you talk about the Emancipation Proclamation, people think that once that Emancipation Proclamation was signed, everyone was freed at the same time, and they were not. So we just got to make sure that people nation.
During that time, of course, they didn't have media. They didn't have cell phones, telephones. So if it wasn't delivered by a messenger or carrier, that information was received very late. And so thank God for Juneteenth celebration. Thank God for the information that we as a people can learn our history so that we don't repeat it. And as you mentioned, with the voter suppression laws that have been pushed here in Georgia, we make so many steps forward and then so many steps backwards. And so we got to continue the push for equality and equal rights. And that's why organizations like the NAACP are still relevant today. And people need to recognize that fact.
Right. And you know, I was reading yesterday where the governor, I guess, will decide whether or not Juneteenth would actually be a holiday in Georgia. So he's going to make a decision whether or not they will actually celebrate that as for state employees, because it is a federal holiday. So, but I guess, you know, he hasn't decided whether or not it'll actually be a state, you know, a state holiday for, I guess, the state employees here in Georgia. So we'll be waiting to see what's going on with that and what happens with that. But it was a lot of people there. You know, I watched the people that were dressed up, the soldiers that were actually, you know, there, and those people that took part in the troops back then, they were, you know, in their uniforms, they were there. You had a lot of different people. You know, they had vendors there that were had items that, you know, reflected back on you know, different things that were made that you know, that was basically a symbol of what took place during that time, and so it was just a lot of amazing different items there that you could purchase during that time. It was very crowded. You know, it was originally supposed to be at the Taylor Square Park, and they had to be, due to the weather they had to move it in the inside. So we had very limited space because we was at the Douglas Theater, but it turned out, you know, pretty good, because, you know, with the last minute like that, you know, people had to kind of get crunched in so everybody could get in and be a part of it. Like I say, they had the auditorium open up, and there were a lot of activities going on in the auditorium. And
there were also some youth events as well. That I believe Thursday they had a spelling bee contest. Mm-hmm. Do you happen to know who the winner of that contest was? I don't know who the winner of that contest was. Yeah, I was kind of curious. And it's good to know that they're involving our young people and educating them so that they can be a part of this celebratory time, you know, of history. Right. Because it is a history making event. And so I'm just, you know, glad to see those organizers to include our youth. And that was great. Right. And so I think, like I say, hopefully with it being a holiday, you know, federal national holiday, hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get more people to participate. And if you for our listening audience, if you experience June 10th and you want to talk about your experience, give us a call here at the radio station. That number is 478-250-1444. Once again, if you're in our listening audience and you want to tell about your experience or what you think about Juneteenth, give us a call at 478-250-1444. We'd love to hear from you. Also, President Westbrooks, even though Juneteenth has kind of ended for the week, and you know, we celebrated that becoming a national holiday. In the Black community, we're still facing some of the same issues we've been dealing with for quite some time, such as crime. And I understand that the mayor is hosting a event on tomorrow at Stewart Chapel Church, dealing with victims of violent crimes. And so there's still an uptick in crime here in the Middle Georgia area. And I think the community as a whole needs to grab hold of the fact that there's something all of us can do to kind of help curtail, crime. And so we kind of do applaud the mayor and his efforts of
Right.
getting together and trying to address this particular issue.
Right. I know that it's going to be, he wants to hear from, some of the victims of the crimes, and I hope people will actually attend, and we just probably need to try to get something. If you're out there today and you're listening, that will be tomorrow, as our First Vice President Dumas said, it will be tomorrow at Stewart Chapel at 6:00. And if you're listening, if you're riding in your cars and you're listening, or if you're at home listening, if you've been affected by violence, or someone in your family has been affected by violence, you need to make sure that you attend. I do plan on being there myself, because I lost a brother to gun violence, and so sometimes it seems like it's just yesterday. And people, you really, the type of work that we do, Mr. Dumas, we're always fighting for people's rights and making sure that, even though people commit crimes, and they may be guilty, but they still have rights. We fight for people's rights every day. But when it hits home, you never know how you're going to react until it actually happens to you. So I struggle with that every day, knowing the type of knowing what these mission and visions, but I struggle every day knowing the fact that my brother was killed senseless. He didn't have to die. He was at a girl's house, and her ex-boyfriend came over and killed him. So it was senseless. So I just and I talk about this because people don't realize when you go to prison, the family has a lot to do with whether or not you're able to get out for parole. And I have not gotten there yet. Every time he would get ready to go for parole, I would always block it. So because I know he's going to get out one day, I just feel that he should serve his time. A life has been taken. And
Absolutely.
So a life has been taken, and so I can't get my brother back. My brother has a son. So we lost someone that was very dear to us. So, like I said, I know that person is going to be getting out one day, but people need to realize that, when you get out, and you may be doing everything you need to do and feel that with good behavior, you should be able to get out. But the person's family has a lot to say when you get ready to come up for parole. Their opinions and their has a lot to do whether or not you would be eligible to come up for parole. So I'm just
also there's a lot of hurt on both sides, the victims,
right,
because those siblings, those mothers, they're suffering a loss for their loved one as well. And so when people commit violent crimes, they don't take in consideration the harm and the hurt that they cause to their families. When they're
yes, and I don't think people really understand. I don't think that they really understand that. And right now, I think that they're in the moment, and whatever thoughts they have in the moment, that's what they react to, and then they don't realize the effect that it has on. They're at the moment they're basically dealing with that person. They're not thinking about how that person has a child, or that person has a mother, a father, sister, brother, whatever. They don't realize that, and then they don't realize how it's going to affect their family.
Exactly.
They don't realize. I'm sorry, my phone is. They don't realize how it's going to affect their family, because, like I said, a lot of times you have to. You're incarcerated. you have to, people are having to spend money, having to get an attorney, and it just puts
Major
strain.
hardship.
Right. It puts a strain and hardship on your family also. So we just got to start thinking. I just think, we did some years back, we did a peace rally where we, asked for the city to be prayed for. We got to continue to stay in prayer too. We just got to, there's no way around it. We got to, with this COVID, it's hard to do things to kind of gather, because even though, people are being vaccinated, we don't know who's been vaccinated and who's not. So you can't really still do a whole lot of gathering. I felt uncomfortable yesterday at the Juneteenth. We had a thing set up in the inside, but I was out on the outside, 90% of the time. I was very seldom in the inside because I felt uncomfortable with a whole, a lot of people like that, and people were not wearing masks. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So, but we just got to make sure, we just got to stay prayerful and keep everyone in prayer.
And keep safety in mind, as you mentioned. We get excited about a lot of things. I think a lot of people are excited about the summer and, getting out, vacationing. But, I've noticed even on the news today, a lot of the airlines have limited their flight capacity because of COVID concerns. And so when there's a concern, on a national level, locally, we have to take heed to that as far as how we conduct ourselves,
Right.
And so we got to continue to be cautious. Unfortunately, today, I believe in Atlanta, they were having the homegoing celebration for the cashier who was shot trying to enforce the wearing of a mask, as far as enforcing the social distance guidelines from CDC, and was gunned down. These are very contentious times where people are agitated. You got certain people on this side that want to support doing the right thing. You got other people who are, thinking this is some type of hoax or something. And it just becomes a very volatile situation.
Right. And then you don't know, you can't really say anything to us sometimes because people, they're sensitive about, they're in, they, like you said, they feel that that's their rights and they shouldn't have to wear one. So you really don't know how, what to how to
kind of approach the situation.
Right. And I was trying to pull up something because this is some type of shooting or killing somewhere every day.
And that's that's a very sad situation in that the violence. There was I think a domestic situation. Somebody was blundered with a hammer and someone else shot the person. This was this past weekend as well. So even this morning, I think there were some shootings with some teenagers or something. So,
well, and I was reading earlier today where it was a 19-year-old shot at an officer during the Juneteenth incident, and he ended up firing back. And so, we're just not thinking. We're just not thinking.
No, and we've got to be more conscious about, our communities and where we are. Because crime now, is not just confined to poor neighborhoods. It's not just confined to certain neighborhoods. It's everywhere.
They want us to think it is, but it's not.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned, I think on last week's show, a lot of times it's not reported when certain shootings take place
in certain communities.
And so statistically, they give us a lot of flack in the Black community about, crime, but crime is in all communities, and any crime anywhere is a crime unwanted, so we've got to be vigilant in that regard.
So I'm thinking, listening to the mayor's plan. I know he was talking about that there's supposed to be a meeting being held in the different communities in the district. I'm assuming that the commissioners are supposed to be having meetings in their area to find out what the people needs are. Because from what I could understand during the press conference, that there was going to be resources and monies put into these communities to help with some of this. But we gotta get this under control with this with the, I guess, the personality differences or the conflict resolutions. We got to definitely work on that. I'm hoping that we can kind of get things on the way. We're been trying to work on something also. We got to get people, young people to give them something to do with jobs and different things like that. And hopefully we can, try to, if everything goes the way we, plan it, then we'll be able to assist in that, to have partners where we can refer and get, our young people prepared, and to go in the workforce. So that's something that we want to take part in and make sure that we kind of get that set up where we can, have a person come in. We got different people in this organization that have different different professions. So, take them through the whole step as far as, showing them how they would need to do to how to fill out an application, how to do a resume, and actually how to do for the interview and all of that. And so, like I said, hopefully we want to be able to get some resources. So if they have to go on an interview, we can maybe, get the clothing and different things like that for them to go on that interview. It's a certain way you need to dress in order to go for an interview. So hopefully we can get partner with some of the employers to try to work with our young people. Maybe that'll help some of this crime. But the first thing we got to deal with the conflict resolution, because they don't want to listen to anybody.
And it's a terrible thing when you have an issue listening, particularly to constructive criticism.
Yes.
One of the other things that we're also looking at is that, with the present administration releasing some monies to our folk, our folks got to want to go back into the workplace and not get complacent with these monies that they're receiving.
Right.
And I think our time is about up, but we certainly
got about 1 minute.
Yes,
we thank the audience for listening.
Absolutely. And look forward to being with you next week. And so for now, I'm Willie Dumas, your host, along with President Westbrooks. Have a great evening.
Y'all stay safe.
Thank you for tuning in.
You have been listening to the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwenette Westbrooks and Mr. Dumas. Come join us next Monday at 4:00 p.m. on 980 WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.